right, we are live, ladies and gentlemen, fans all over the world. Excited about the show we're having tonight. Kind of been wanting to bring a panel together because being in this industry, we all, of course, know what we know, but we quickly realize that there's so many families out there that are entering the roles of caregiving and the decisions that a family faces with their loved ones and what to do. People do not know where to turn or what to do. So the purpose of this podcast and the panel that we have on here is to be able to bring those professionals here to share their advice that they can have for you. So I'm going to bring on each guest and let them introduce themselves, and then we'll get into some specific questions that hopefully can help you. So first on stage, we've got Cynthia Welch with Meyerson Law Firm. They specialize in elder care, estate planning, and all that. So Cynthia, welcome to the show. If you would, just briefly introduce yourself, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Thank you, Mark, for having me on. I'm really excited to participate in this panel tonight. And so my name again is Cynthia Welch. I'm a senior estate planning attorney with the Meyerson Law Firm. Our office is in Sonoy. We do business all over the state. And our sole focus really is working with people to get their estate plans in place. And then we also handle probate matters and probate litigation matters. My focus is the estate planning.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming on. And next, I want to bring on Beth Dow. Beth is with Home Helpers. They are an in-home care agency. Beth has tons of experience. She's a fantastic person. And it's a pleasure to know Beth. So, Beth, with that said, take it away.
Thank you. Yes, so I own Home Helpers. We've been in business about 17 years. We do home care. In addition to Home Helpers, I'm a Alzheimer's and dementia educator and also a geriatric care manager. So we're here to help families who are traveling this road any way we can.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. And next we have Monica Hyder with Caring Transition, to where when people make those decisions and it's time to make the next move, they are left with, what in the world do I do with all this stuff in my house? And Monica specializes in that. So Monica, welcome on board. If you would introduce yourself and give a brief summary of what you specialize in.
Thank you, Mark, for having me. I'm Monica Hyder, owner of Caring Transitions of Peachtree City. And when it's time to move mom or dad to a new apartment, to senior community, or maybe it's been a heavenly move, we come in and we help prepare the home for the realtor. So we're cleaning out, having online auctions, and then the house is ready to be sold.
Excellent. Thank you as well for joining. So kind of the topic we're going to be discussing tonight as a panel is, navigating elder care and all the decisions that come about when you're facing it. And I think we all can agree that regardless of what we know, when it happens to you and your own family, it kind of changes the dynamics a little bit. And so we found ourselves, my family, to where we realized that mom and dad at their age and mom was going to be needing some additional levels of care. Kind of find yourself like scattered, like, oh my goodness, what do we do? Where do we turn? So kind of the things that we'll be touching on is I was talking with Beth, and part of her experience is, when families first enter that, it's like, okay, all right, who's going to take care of them? So like me and my sisters and my wife, we tried to tackle it. So, okay, my wife cooked some meals each week, and then me and my sisters rotated spending the night each night. And that quickly kind of got over our heads, and we realized, okay, we need to bring in some outside help. And that began the search of, okay, who does that? And then talking with different companies like Beth, that's what she does. And you just come across the different companies that are out there, and they all have different, I guess, requirements. And Beth can touch on that as well later. But it's also, where are they going to live? Are they going to stay home? Are we going to take care of them? Or do they need to move outside of the home? And the big question is, how are we going to pay for it? Did mom and dad prepare for this? we find many times a lot of people don't prepare. They have no clue what to do. And we like to start out when we have a potential client come to us at CareQuest. We don't just do just placement. We kind of come in as advocates. And one of the first things we do is we like to suggest they speak with someone like Cynthia to make sure they have their estate in order. Do they have a POA? Do they even understand what all's going on with that? So I kind of want to start out with you, Cynthia, and let's ask some questions, and you can kind of give some brief answers and your experience on that. So, with that said, when a family comes your way and they're entering this for the first time, what legal considerations should the families keep in mind when they're planning for their aging loved one's care?
The very first one that comes to mind is having a financial power of attorney and the healthcare document in place. In Georgia, we call it an advanced directive. In Georgia, it's kind of a multi-part document. So it's a healthcare power of attorney and a living will combined, and also a kind of a backup appointment of a guardian should the person ever need that. Having those two documents in place, they're what I call disability planning documents. And what they do is they give in advance, they give the loved one the ability to say, this is who I would want to be handling my finances if I can't do it. And this is who I'd want to be making healthcare decisions for me if I can't speak for myself. Without those documents in place, if the loved one becomes incapacitated in the sense that they don't have sufficient mental capacity to sign a legal document, then the family is going to have to go to the probate court and get a guardianship and a conservatorship in order to have the powers that the loved one can just give them if they have the capacity to sign the documents in advance. Guardianship and conservatorship is a nightmare. It's a nightmare in so many ways. It can be very divisive in the family. What if the family doesn't agree on who should be the legal guardian or who should be the conservator? It also is expensive. You have to file annual reports with the court. You have to post a bond. I mean, it just goes on and on. It's a nightmare. So this is truly an ounce of prevention. Having those two documents, power of attorney and the advanced directive in place, is just absolutely essential.
Well, I think that's, we all touch on this and talk about these things internally and at meetings or whatever, trying to encourage families to discuss this now before they find themselves in the throes of it. So Beth, do you come across situations, or Monica, do you come across situations to where a family did not have these things in place? So they're sent to Cynthia, but there, like you had said, Cynthia, there's a time frame involved in getting those things through probate. But in the meantime, the needs are pressing. So a lot of times families get kind of stuck in the ditch of being able to move forward until those things are handled. So I know this is a loaded question, but what typically can be the time frame of if they need that to go through probate? What's the early to the later amounts of time it can take?
Oh, you mean if they don't have the power of attorney and the advanced directive in place? Well, there you can get an emergency guardianship and an emergency conservatorship if you need it. The threshold for getting the court to issue those on an emergency basis is much higher than if you're just applying regularly. And the emergency documents are only good for 90 days, so you have to go through the regular process anyway. But depending on what county you're in, it can be anywhere. Emergency happens quick, but it's only a stopgap. Okay. You only use it if you absolutely have to, because you still then have to go back and apply for the full-blown guardianship and conservatorship. But the regular process can take anywhere from a couple of months to 6 months or more. So it's I cannot really stress enough that if the loved one has the capacity to sign these documents, we'll get them in place now. Name a backup so that if the first person named can't do it, there's somebody standing in the wings. And those documents can be done very, very quickly.
Okay.
And,
well,
and the last thing, I'm sorry.
That's right. Go ahead.
The last piece of this is that the determination of whether a person has sufficient mental capacity to sign a legal document is it's not as onerous, I guess is the word I'm looking for, as you might think. So if the person knows what they're signing, who they're asking to take control of their finances or their healthcare decision making. If they can answer those questions to my satisfaction, then we're going to sign the documents.
Yeah. Well, this question kind of answers itself. I mean, obviously, but how does proper legal planning alleviate the stress for families during this process? So obviously, if it's someone that hasn't planned, they're facing all that. So just the question itself, families that already have this in place, and if those times do come, it's just then a matter of coming in and, I guess, activating it or getting you to file the proper papers for the family to kind of move forward with the care.
No, actually, once the documents are in place, then the people that are named as the agents have full authority to do whatever they need to do. They can
Okay,
contract
so
for
it's already
care.
done. Okay.
Yeah, it's already done. No,
So,
you don't
yeah.
need, at that point, you don't need any permission from anybody. You only have to go to the probate court if you don't have these documents in place.
Gotcha. Okay. Excellent. What are some common misconceptions about the legalities and caregiving decisions for loved ones? The spouse, do they automatically get that power of a decision, probate, inheritance, children?
Well, okay, those are kind of two different pieces. One, if we're talking about in making caregiving decisions for the loved one is still here, then at least in the medical community, they tend to go along with what a spouse wants. But I have a personal example of how that can go way off the rails. My father didn't have this document in place, and he needed emergency open heart surgery and ran into all kinds of trouble and ended up in intensive care on a ventilator and for like 4 months. And my mother knew that he wouldn't want to live like that, but 2 of my 5 siblings said, you can't give up on him. And she didn't want to buck them, and she didn't have the document to back her up that expressed his wishes in his handwriting.
Yeah.
And so literally put him through hell for 4 months. He got well enough to go to rehab and was gone a week later. So yeah, just having so did my mother have the authority? Yes, she had the authority to say, no, we're not going to put him on the ventilator, or no, we're not going to put him on dialysis. She had the authority to do that. But because of the family dynamics, she couldn't quite bring herself to do it. Had he had that document in place, it would have been so much easier. And I will tell you that one of my siblings didn't speak to any of us for almost 4 years. She was so upset.
Yeah.
So, it's just in terms of reducing the opportunity for family conflict, that's a stress reliever. Knowing that whoever has been appointed by your loved one is who they chose to put in the decision-making position, it does tend to reduce at least the opportunity for conflict in the family. And, at the end of the day, that's peace of mind.
Well, I think we all know, without saying too much, that family dynamics can be some of the biggest challenges at times when dealing with situations, because everybody does have their opinion. So that can add the challenge. So lastly, what advice do you have for families handling the final aspect for their loved ones?
Mark, I wanted to add one thing
Sure.
to what you said. What also happens that I see a lot of times is adult children do assume that the parent is going to be the one that gives the advice or tells the doctors what to do. But what often happens is the spouse has dementia.
Oh,
and now you have a spouse who's supposed to be making those decisions, not making them with the cognitive ability to make them.
Wow.
So that's another reason why the documents that Cynthia's talking about have got to be in place. And there's got to be, what my wishes are and, who's going to follow those through, because.
That gets back to the importance of POA, just that.
Right.
Because like you're saying, dementia or they have a stroke, and then it's something they're fine today, but something happens, slip, fall, bang on the head, car accident, incapacitated. It's like, whoa, okay. Didn't see that coming.
Well, then their POA is their wife who has dementia.
Well, and that's why I always insist that you name a backup.
Right.
at least one backup, because if you don't, if you don't have a document, or you only have named your spouse as your agent, and then that spouse can't do it for whatever reason, we're back to probate court getting guardianship and conservatorship.
Right. So that's
Wow.
I just want to say that. So it's you got to have the document, like Cynthia says, and then you got to have the backup.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Good point. Well, lastly on that, Cynthia, what advice do you have for families handling the financial aspect for their loved ones?
The main thing that I see where conflict comes in, and this I think is kind of a backdoor way of answering your question, Mark, is that if one person is in charge, again, you got that whole family dynamic. Mom loved you more than me. I'm the oldest, whatever it is, right?
And I'm the baby boy.
I'm the baby boy. If you're the one that's being charged with handling the money, we all know that money makes people crazy, or access to it makes people do crazy
Or the
things.
lack thereof.
Or the lack thereof. That transparency and communication, I think, are really, really important. A lot of the time, what we see, especially, and it really comes out like after the loved one's gone, and now there's probate, and the brothers and sisters are fighting because they think that the person who's in charge didn't do a very good job, or spent mom's money, or wasn't doing the job right. So I think if my advice to agents is always, look, be transparent, communicate. If you anticipate problems, then address them. Don't let things sort of fester or figure they'll go away, because they don't usually. They just get worse. So that's the big thing, I think, is communication and transparency.
Excellent.
Oh, I need to add, though. I'm sorry. I do need to add that somebody who is named as an agent, particularly in the financial power of attorney, they have a lot of power. They also have a legal duty to the person who gave them that power. It's called a fiduciary duty.
Okay.
And they can be held. So the duties basically are duty of loyalty to your principal, the person who gave you the power, a duty to act always in good faith and only in the best interests of that person. If you don't comply with those duties, you can be held legally liable.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys have, especially you, Cynthia. I'm sure we've all been involved in these stories, but it's so sad that you see families that take advantage of their parents and steal money from them, and it's just it's mind-boggling to see all the stuff that goes on out there, because money does make people wacko, and it's usually the when there's family dynamics and there's more than one child, of course, there's always the doer, and then there's always the ones that don't do anything until after the fact, and they come in and want to control the whole thing. But very, very good stuff. Appreciate you sharing all that. So Beth, want to come to you with some questions. With your experience, with you're coming in and you're meeting with families that are facing these decisions of needing in-home care. So if you want to kind of start out, how does someone decide when home care may be needed for the loved ones? What's the process they go through?
They're starting to see things in the home or with their loved one, or their loved one's just taking up a lot of their time. They're working, they're taking care of kids, and their mom wants them to take them to the grocery store. The mom needs to go to the doctor, or the mom's fallen. Typically, when people call us, it's one of two things. They're in crisis and they need help yesterday, or they're not in crisis, but they're beginning to see things. And I always tell them, if you're beginning to see things now, your mama probably needed help a year ago. Because we hide, we hide stuff from our children.
True.
Yeah. So it's just, you've really got to get in there, and the holidays are a perfect time. You go in the home, you check out, do you see bills on the table? If you've been with your mom a couple of days, or a family member a couple of days, are they changing their clothes? Are they as kept as they used to be? Is the home as kept as they used to be? I remember my grandmother, I'm telling you could eat off her bathroom floor. She was a phenomenal housekeeper. Then we started going to her house, and it just wasn't as clean as it used to be. Still clean by many standards.
Sure.
But not my grandmama's standards.
Right.
So you start seeing that things are different. And that's where you just, you start thinking, hey, they need some extra help.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they want the extra help to come from that adult child who, like I said, is doing 20 other things.
Yeah.
And it just begins to wear on them. So
Well, would you agree, with your experience, to where just sharing personally with my family, sometimes you need someone from the outside,
Oh,
because the
definitely.
family dynamics just gets confusing, and you've known each other your whole lives. And as a silly example, my wife can share some things with me, over and over and over, and then someone else can say the same thing, and I'll bring it up like it's some profound knowledge. She's like, I've been telling you that for
Mhm.
years. So it's kind of the same thing with family, of getting, mom and dad to allow their kids to kind of be their overseer, so to speak. But moving on to that, how does in-home care benefit both the elderly and their family? We're already touching on some of
Yeah,
that,
it
but
frees
kind of going a
frees
little
the
bit
family,
further.
and while, a lot of times, like, especially men, it was my job to take care of my wife. That's what I signed up for. It's my job to take care of them, or it's my job to take care of my mama. It is our job to make sure our parents and our loved ones are taken care of. It doesn't necessarily mean we're the one physically doing it.
Hmm.
And my mom had 24-hour care, as my dad did. Dad had Lou Gehrig's and my mom had Alzheimer's, and we had 24-hour care. And I'm telling you, those people took better care of them than I could have,
Oh,
because I'm
good point.
working, I'm tired,
Yeah.
and then I go in
And
and take care of them.
and sometimes it's nice, and again, all I can do is speak from what my family experiences, is sometimes you get so caught up in the being the errand boy and doing this and doing that, that you forget to just visit,
Exactly.
right?
Well, that's what we did.
Because
We
you're
would we would go to my parents' house every Friday and would spend the weekend. I kept the caregivers there, not because
ah
I couldn't change a diaper, but because I didn't have to. I didn't, my daddy
you could be
didn't
the
need
daughter.
me changing his diaper, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they stayed there. They did the things like that that needed to happen. And I was their daughter, which is what everyone needed.
Absolutely. That can't be stated enough. What types of services then does your agency offer, and how do they cater to different needs?
So it's all based on the individual. Most people unless they're calling us in crisis, if they're actually being proactive and seeing that the parents need some help, honestly and truly, the first place most people need help is in cooking. They quit cooking. Therefore, they're eating junk food, takeout food, snacks, not eating well, and then their health starts going down. They need help in transportation. It's a reflex thing. It's not that you're old and therefore you're not smart enough to drive or you're not making the right decisions. It's that as we age, we all lose reflex. And so we're
Mm.
not reacting as quick. So we're a great driver, but when the jerk pulls out in front of you, you can't stop soon enough. So usually that's kind of where it starts. And so we can do anything from that to light housekeeping to reminding about medications, taking people to doctors so we can hear what the doctor's saying, because sometimes they don't, all the way to personal care, bed baths, toileting, dressing, feeding. So everything from, like I say, cooking, light housekeeping, transportation, all the way down to full care.
Yeah, that was a monster of a situation, taking Dad's keys away. He could not understand the fact of, Dad, you cannot hear, you cannot react. You fiddle with the radio or whatever, and you got to protect people on the
Mhm.
road.
That's
You
the hard. That's
imagine,
your first symbol of independence.
absolutely.
And so
And
that's
Cynthia,
also, you take that away, that's your
yeah.
first symbol of losing your independence.
So, kind of for you, Cynthia, if Dad goes out and drives and gets in an accident, there's legal liability, right? So,
Oh, could be huge.
absolutely. So we had to just share those things with him. But it took 6 rounds. I had to go 6 rounds with him, and now he doesn't, talk to me. But like I always repeat, I'm on a flag lot behind him, and so the never drives a car, and he goes, "Hey, can I back the car out there? The left back tire's going flat." I just wanted to back out the driveway. It's kind of funny, but
I have to tell you a funny story. So a very good friend, her mother was very short. I mean, when she was behind the wheel, you couldn't even hardly see the top of her head over the steering wheel. And she really didn't need to be driving anymore. And so my friend took the car, told her mom she was taking the car to the shop, and it never came home.
Exactly. That's what
Well,
we tell people all the time. Borrow the car. You wrecked it while you borrowed it. The car needs repairing. It's repaired. My father-in-law, who had frontal temporal dementia, he was driving one day. We drove the truck to the back of the property. He never drove again. The truck
Wow.
was his trigger. When the truck was in the driveway, he knew he needed to drive. Once
That's a
we
good
removed
point.
that truck, he didn't
Maybe
remember he had
maybe
to
I
drive
need to.
anymore.
How can I pay one of y'all to come steal the car if I leave the keys
Sure.
and $100 bill on it? Oh, hey, real quick, kind of Cynthia, what you just said. There's this true situation to where someone tried that. They're like telling their mom, "Hey, the car is not safe," So they come back over a few days later, and there was a brand new car sitting there, and the mom, she went and traded it in on a new car. So that kind of backfired on them. But so Beth, lastly, what advice do you have for families considering in-home care for their loved ones?
You need to understand about the cost, and you need to do that early on. I do a talk that's the 40-70 conversation, which is the conversation you need to have if you're 40 or your parent's 70. And it talks about cost. People think Medicare pays for home care. Medicare does not pay for home care. Medicare does not pay for assisted living. It's going to come out of pocket. So you have to know that there's money there to do that. VA has a lot of programs that if you are a veteran, VA has a lot of programs that will pay for care. If you are a veteran or your parent's a veteran or your spouse a veteran, you need to understand before you need it what those will pay for.
Excellent. Well, Monica, let's move on to Monica. Monica has a ton of experience of coming in when families make the decision to where, it could still be in-home care, but they need to do it in a smaller place. So they need to downsize, they need to move. Monica even mentioned at the beginning, maybe there's death. And so Monica and her company does a fantastic job of coming in, because when you're dealing with all the aspects of that, and you've got let's call them professional collectors. You got the families that it's almost like a pathway through their house from all the stuff they've collected. It can be overwhelming to the siblings or the friends that come in and go, what do we do with all of this stuff? Where do we even start? So Monica, what role does your company play in helping families navigate after they've sold their home?
Well, hopefully it's before they sell their home.
Or before they sell their home. Get out.
So
Either way.
It gives us time. So it gives us time to go in. We will go in first at the consultation, and we just want to see, what is happening. Is mom and dad moving? If they're moving, we want to make sure they're taking what they need to take and what they want to take. Not everything can go, especially if you're moving from a 3,000 square foot home to, 900 square foot new apartment. So we can help them floor plan and figure out, what it is that they want to take. Obviously, if it brings them joy, it makes them happy. Take the little curio cabinet. We can decorate it the same way, mirror what they have at home. So when they are moving into their new apartment, it's a little bit of home with them, and it doesn't feel so new. But we will, before we come in, first the goal is to get them moved, and we have them mark the items, whether it's, with a piece of tape or post it, but we want to know what's being moved. And the goal is to get them moved before we go back in to clean out the house.
Okay.
That's not always the case, but in a dream world, we would be able to move mom and or dad. The family has removed what they wanted to take, and then we can come back and prepare for a sale. We can sell anything, but the goal is what is best for that home and that family. Because just because I can sell a chair, I can sell anything for $1, right? Because we have online auctions and everything starts at $1. But the goal is to get the house cleared out. And we want to have somewhat of a profitable sale. But the overall goal, especially if they're moving and selling the home, the money's in the real estate. So what
Mm,
I often say is, I'm not here just to sell everything, because if it can be a clean out, let's just get it cleaned out and donated. So you can, enjoy your new apartment, and then your house can go on the market.
mm.
Because the purpose of our online auctions is to, help set our prices. And if there's, money left over, that's great. And, we're able to give the family a little money back.
Excellent.
Um,
Well, not
but
go ahead.
sorry.
No,
No,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Now, I didn't want to disrupt what you were talking about, but if I don't pay attention to a question that someone posted, I will not multitask too good. So, kind of back into Val asked, what planning or programs are out there to assist in paying for care at home? And so, Beth, one of like if there's a VA, you had spoke at one time about aid and assistant for someone that was during wartime. But do any of you have anything that you know of that could assist in paying for in-home care? Is there any programs out there?
For veterans or for anybody?
Anybody, of course, there's a program for veterans, but those that aren't a
Yeah.
veteran.
So if you're not a veteran, Medicaid will pay,
Mm-hmm.
which is really important to get with your elder law attorney ahead of time to do your assets protection. So Medicaid will. Long-term care insurance will pay for home care. But if you don't have that at 70, you're probably not going to have it. So that's something you
Mhm.
get, preferably before you're 60. Other than that, it's pretty much private pay. A lot of people will see that Medicare Advantage will pay. They pay for 2 hours once a week for 24 weeks. That is what Medicare Advantage pays for right now. So basically, it is private pay, family funded care.
All right. And I'm sorry, Monica, I just that it popped up and I missed it when Beth was talking, so I wanted to throw back in there. So, Monica, when you have a client, what are some of the primary things you're seeing that you could share and kind of help people prepare? Like, what advice do you have for families that are trying to handle the sale of the home, and with all this stuff, what advice do you have that you could maybe help mentally alleviate them just by you sharing?
Well, start today.
Hmm.
So if the house is, you have your 3,000 square foot home and it's, slam full, start today. Maybe start in the closet. Take all your clothes and, put them one way, hang them up one way. And then in a month, look at it. And if you have, after you wear it, flip it, reverse it. So in a month or in a couple weeks, you go back and you see the clothes that you haven't worn. Maybe those are the clothes that you donate. Or you set like 4 boxes. You're going to have your donate box, your trash box, your sell box, or your storage box. And every day put something in that box. So then when the box is full, you're taking it to donate, or you're, setting it aside. But start today, because you never know what tomorrow is going to bring.
Yeah. I kind of want to ask this because it is kind of I feel it's a common situation. For those that have family members that do have just way too much stuff, and they kind of are fighting getting rid of it. How do you handle that when you realize you're in a situation that they're not very cooperative?
That's ironic you're saying that. We did just help a family move, and the son was having a hard time with his stepdad. But I had a team member, so it's a non-family member. She was patiently just, went through each room with them, because he he had everything back, boxed up, but she was able to sit with him, and it was quick. I mean, the son told me, wow, I can't believe how well she worked with him
Mm.
and was able to get him to let go of the crock pot that he's not going to be using, or the pans he loved to bake. She was non-family. She was patient. He gained her trust. He trusted her, and she was just able to calmly work with him versus, the son. It's amazing how well she did and how well it worked, but he's not going to buck her. He's going to buck the son because
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard letting go. But I
Yeah.
will say what I've noticed, and that wasn't an ideal situation. Again, the ideal situation is we have them moved, and then we can go back in the house. The good thing is I have a great team, and everybody on our team does things a little different, but Megan is a great member of our team, and she was able to patiently work with him. But in the ideal world, because it is overwhelming and it can cause stress, it's always good not to have them there when they see their stuff go, because it's
Yeah.
emotional and it's hard, and then they can become agitated. So ideally, it's nice if helpful if the family is not there during the process.
Yeah.
But
That's kind of a
not.
good lead in. Let's all take some brief moments, just kind of go in for all of us, just kind of share, some of the common challenges families face and some of our experiences, like you just had, Monica, and we had touched on it earlier that it does help having an outside company come in, regardless of each of our categories. It helps having, if from a sibling talking to their parents about legal stuff, I'm sure it's easier to have someone like Cynthia come in talking about in-home care, having Beth come in, and same with you, Monica. Like, we experience the same things to where we've had situations to where the family's trying to talk to their loved ones about, going into assisted living or accepting in-home care. A lot of times they'll listen to us more than they will their family, because they've all known each other their whole lives. And so there's a history there, some good, some bad. So just from your experiences, what we're seeing a lot of, and I'm sure we all do, is how unprepared families are. We see that a lot, and a lot of it is financial. And so it's difficult you can't advise enough to ask families, especially the holidays are here. No one wants to spend the holidays talking about these things, but this is reality. It's so important. It's either address it now, or you're going to be forced to address it. So what are some of your challenges from your perspective of what you do, the services you offer, that you can share, that maybe you could help someone go ahead and put those things in place so they would not be a challenge? So whoever feels led to share that, what common challenges are you seeing?
Just to kind of piggyback on what Beth was talking about, and you were just talking about, Mark, I have to give you a little bit of a shout out, because I had a long-term client contact me not too long ago about her brother, and she had two sisters and her brother, and her brother had lived in the family home his whole life, and both of their parents, the last one had recently died, and he really needed to not be living alone anymore.
Yeah.
And but he would not entertain leaving where he'd lived for 70 years or more.
Yeah.
So the sisters just could not get him off the dime. They came to see me without him, and at least to talk about getting the power of attorney and the advance directive in place, and a will, because he had some property. And I referred them to Mark, and Mark was able in short order to convince this man that he needed to move, and he's moved, and he's happy as a clam. So it's that knowing what, being able to refer for things that I couldn't do was just a huge help. And Mark and his company did a fabulous job. In terms of the challenges, and especially because people are going to be together for the holidays, you can make it as low key and simple as, hey, mom and dad, do you have a power of attorney in place? And that might kickstart the conversation, and in a kind of non-threatening way. Look, we just need to make sure that somebody has the authority to help you if you need us to, from a legal perspective. And then also, like, do you have a will? Where is it? Where are you keeping it? So if we need to find it, we know where to look. One of the big problems that people have in the probate process or after a loved one has passed is knowing where they bank, knowing who the life insurance company is. I've had people call me and say, well, I know they had life insurance, but I'm not sure who it was with. Is there like a national data bank? No, there isn't. You just have to start calling insurance companies. So things like that, just, trying to get in a low key way the information that you think you're going to need at some point, or to open the conversation. You don't have to make all kinds of decisions, but you can at least plant the seed so that going forward, maybe you can get your loved ones to get their documents in place so that you reduce the opportunity for conflict in the family, because without planning, there is going to be conflict. I'm not saying with planning there won't be conflict, but you reduce the opportunity for conflict and hopefully keeping some peace in the family.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because on that topic, Val posted a question to where, like, when you were mentioning someone passing and then it being left to the one that's in charge of it. So what happens after a loved one passes and the siblings disagree with the decisions the beneficiary is making, financial decisions? Like,
do you mean like once the loved one has passed, and
once the loved one's passed and the person in control of the finances that has the POA, and now you've got siblings and family coming out of the woodworks that are challenging your decisions that you've made?
Okay, so first of all, the authority that someone has under a power of attorney dies with the person who gave them that power. So at someone's death, that power of attorney is no longer effective. It cannot be used. It's void.
Okay.
And it's basically revoked by death. Okay. So if someone uses a power of attorney after death and a financial institution accepts it, then you have recourse both against the individual and the institution, the bank. So in terms of, but if you have questions about how your sibling handled the parents' finances before their death, that the only way to really go after someone who you think really abused a power of attorney is you have to file a lawsuit in superior court. It's a civil lawsuit. You have to prove breach of fiduciary duty. It's a tough litigation, but it's litigation. For sure.
Okay. All right. Beth, Monica, do y'all have any observations that you want to share? Common things that comes up that you could give advice on?
The one I have is I hear people all the time that will say, well, mama doesn't want anybody in her home, or mama doesn't want to move to assisted living, or daddy won't do this. And what they need to understand, I know that's your parents, but sometimes they're not able to make the best decision for themselves. They're not cognitively able to make the best decision. And I use the analogy of when you send your kindergartner off to school. He doesn't want to go when he holds onto your leg and he's crying and screaming, but you know that is the best, safest place for him to be, where he can thrive and be taken care of. And a lot of times that's how it is with our parents. No, they don't want to leave their home that they've lived in for 50 years. But the best, safest place for them to be may be in an assisted living, or the best, safest place for them to be may be in their home with someone in their home with them. So it's hard to overrule your parents sometime.
Yeah.
But as adult children, if your parent no longer has that cognitive ability to make the best decision to keep them safe, you have to step up to the plate and you have to do it.
Yeah.
And they will usually go along. They buck it, but they too know. And they usually, we're with a family right now that the dad's a colonel, retired colonel. Absolutely no way is anyone coming into my home. He
Wow.
loves it. He
Yeah.
absolutely loves it. He's having a blast. He has someone else to talk to other than his wife.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very, I think that's a very important thing to really highlight is, change is not easy for any stage of life. But when you're observing from the outside, and Cynthia, thanks for the word you shared earlier, and that's a good example of being able to, you know, I think we're all advocates at the beginning of the day to be able to go in and make a difference in family's life, and to be able to, share things with them, to encourage them, because that, once they get out of those four walls that they're spending 24/7 in, there's no social life going on. So when they get around other people in an assisted living community, or you have an in-home care agency come in, you've got outside help coming in that's able to bring energy, bring vitality, bring life in,
Social
and
engagement.
absolutely is so important. Um, but Monica, do you have anything that you want to share? And I think you already touched on it. And I observed it with my mom and dad. And thankfully, so looking back, they started decluttering years ago because they went through it with their parents. So they had the firsthand experience of going, hey, we kind of want to lighten the load. If God allows us to live, right, my children's going to have to take care of us. And we watched them start doing it years ago. And I didn't really realize what they were doing. But now the attic's clear, everything's cleared out. So would you agree with that approach?
Well, yes, another thing I wanted to say is utilize donation pickup services, Better Way Movers, Habitat for Humanity, Restore. Schedule those pickups for furniture. Even, your local churches might be collecting. So that could be, a way in the donation process. Don't forget about the charities that you could utilize when you're
And plus, I
downsizing
mean,
and trying
yeah,
to
yeah,
clear
because
out.
they'll be able to get, as far as taxes, they'll be able to get even a write-off for donating those things for what that's worth and all. But
Yes.
listen, as a wrap up, I want to thank each and every one of you seriously for taking the time to come on. Obviously, if here's the website for Cynthia, Beth, and Monica. So just reach out to them directly if you come across this and want their advice. And like I'd said earlier, we try to recommend everyone reach out to Cynthia that we come across so they can get that consult on the things that needs to be in place. But I want us each to leave kind of a summary statement. And I'll start by saying that I'll harp on this and harp on this is start talking now. Start getting together with your family now and have those uncomfortable, awkward conversations because it's not going to go away. And you can't plan soon enough. And if somebody comes across this and you're in your 30s, start preparing now because it's not cheap. And thankfully, thank God, mom and dad took out long-term care insurance a long time ago, and they have a grandfather clause, so they don't have a cap on theirs. And so thankfully they did because they still have to come out of pocket for care, and people can still outlive their money with even having insurance. So I cannot stress it enough. Get with an attorney, get your estate in order, and then start talking now and start planning. Cynthia, do you have any wrap up comments you want to say?
Yes, I do. Just to piggyback on Beth talked a little bit about Medicaid and mentioned asset protection. If you think you're going to need help paying for care, down the road, or if you think might need it, it's important to have the conversation. We can certainly help with this, but we can look at VA eligibility. We can also evaluate Medicaid eligibility. With the ability to plan ahead, we can put some things in place to not only position the person to be able to qualify for care paid for by Medicaid down the road, but also to protect and preserve those assets, particularly the family home or the equity in a home, against Medicaid estate recovery. So planning ahead is important for so many reasons. There's a lot we can do if we have time. If we're in emergency mode, our options are a lot more limited.
Yeah.
We can still
Well,
help.
I think, yeah. Someone, Tony, had made a post about what if a loved one passed away and you cannot find the will? Is there a way to locate it? Tony, let me put up Cynthia's. Cynthia, if you want to go ahead and just speak out your office number for
Sure.
Tony to ask, and then Tony, you can reach out to Cynthia's firm, and they'll be able to help answer your question specifically about the will. So for Tony Petty, Cynthia, what's the number for her to
678-892-5910.
Okay.
678-892-5910, or send us an email.
Getcha. All right. Well, so Tony, just reach out and Cynthia will get you taken care of there. So any final thoughts, anybody?
Just reach out and ask people. I tell people all the time, I don't have all the answers, but I know people who do. So, you can probably call any one of us and, just, we can help. I don't, when you call me, you don't just get home care help. I tell you need to go to see an attorney. I tell you about Monica. If you need assisted living, I tell you about Mark. So, just reach out. Don't be so bogged down in, I don't know the right person to call. Just call one of us. Call someone in senior care, senior living, and they will help point you in the direction.
Exactly.
There is definitely a lot of resources out here. Monica, you got a wrap up comment you want to make?
Agree with what Beth just said.
Very good.
It doesn't even have to, I'm happy to guide whoever to the right person, because I know it can be overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, once again, thank you each so much. Everybody that's on this show, I could not recommend highly enough. So if anybody stumbles across this podcast, even if I'm dead and gone and they're still kicking, reach out to any of these professionals. They're fantastic people. They got great hearts, and I appreciate each and every one of them. So Merry Christmas to you and your family. So until next time, we were ending the stream.